If you were heavily pregnant and got attacked by the bride on her wedding day, what would you do? This is the story of Sofia. Sophia is a kind but poor laundry kiosk owner whose life changes when she helps Marcus, a wealthy tech billionaire, after a traffic accident ruins his suit just before the biggest meeting of his life. A real bond grows between them as Marcus helps pay for Sophia's mother's urgent medical care. But their growing love becomes a threat to Marcus's fiancée, Natalie, who desperately needs the marriage to fix her family's money problems. The air inside Marcus's car was cold, but sweat dripped down his back. Outside, the Nairobi sun was a hot, angry eye in the sky. His car, a shiny black SUV, had not moved even 1 inch in 20 minutes. It was stuck. All around him, 1,000 other cars, trucks, and blue matatu buses were also stuck. This was the Nairobi Expressway at 9 in the morning. It was a river of metal and noise. People called it the jam. Today, it felt like a full stop. Marcus tapped his fingers on the leather steering wheel. Tap, tap, tap. He looked at the expensive watch on his wrist. 9:15. His meeting was at 10 o'clock. It was the biggest meeting of his life. Men in suits were flying in from London to sign a paper. That one piece of paper would make his company, a small tech business he had built from nothing, worth billions of shillings. It was everything. He had started with just a laptop in his small room in Mathare. He worked night and day. He ate simple food and drank water. Now he lived in a big, quiet house in Karen with high walls and a gate. He wore suits that cost more than some people's cars, but his heart still pounded hard. He was still hungry. He still wanted to win. Today was the day he would finally win if he could just get to the meeting. A loud horn blared next to him. A matatu conductor was hanging out of the window, yelling at the car in front, "Move your vehicle!" The noise was everywhere. Marcus closed his eyes for a second. He could feel a headache starting. On the passenger seat was a clean, sharp suit and a plastic bag. He had planned to change at his office. Everything had to be perfect. Finally, the river of cars began to move. First a crawl, then a slow drive. Marcus pressed the accelerator. Hope flickered inside him. He might just make it. He took the exit ramp toward Upper Hill, his hands tight on the wheel. He passed street vendors selling cold juice and snacks. He passed women carrying bags on their heads. The city was alive and loud and messy. He was only a few streets from his office when he stopped to pick up the final documents from his lawyer's messenger. The man on a small motorcycle handed him a large brown envelope. "Confidential," it said in big red letters. Marcus nodded, took the envelope, and placed it on the passenger seat. He was about to drive away when it happened. A matatu bus trying to cut in front of another car swerved wildly. Its tires hit a huge puddle of dirty brown water left from the night's heavy rain. The water was dark and smelled bad. It flew through the air like a wave. It crashed against the side of Marcus's car. His window was down. The wave of muddy water came right inside. It hit him in the face and chest. It soaked his shirt. It soaked his tie. It soaked the clean suit in the plastic bag. For a second, there was only the sound of the splash, then silence. Marcus just sat there, dripping. He slowly wiped his face with his hand. His hand came away brown and dirty. He looked at his shirt. It was ruined. He looked at the suit bag. It was filled with muddy water. The beautiful suit inside was destroyed. His perfect plan was gone. His head began to pound. He could not go to the most important meeting of his life smelling like a drain. He could not walk in there looking like a mess. They would laugh at him. They would give the deal to his rival, a man who was always clean and always perfect. He saw his rival's car, a silver Mercedes, drive past. The man inside looked at him and smiled a small, cruel smile. He knew. Panic, cold and sharp, stabbed Marcus in the chest. What could he do? His house was too far. The meeting was too close. He looked around wildly. Cars were honking behind him. The world was shouting at him to move. But he was stuck again, not in a traffic jam, but in a disaster. Then he saw it. Across the busy road, tucked between a big bank and a phone accessories shop, was a small, shaky-looking container. It was a kiosk. The paint was peeling, the roof was rusted. A sign painted by hand said, "Sunshine Laundry, we wash with care." It was not much, it was almost nothing, but right now it was his only hope. Sofia wiped sweat from her forehead with the back of her hand. The air in her little kiosk was hot and thick with the smell of soap and steam from the old pressing iron. Business was slow today, very slow. She had only washed 1 shirt and 2 pairs of trousers. The money she made, just a few hundred shillings, sat in a small wooden box. It was not enough. It was never enough. Her left arm ached. It was an old pain from a sickness she had as a girl. The doctors in her village had tried their best, but the arm never healed properly. It was weaker than the other. On hot days like this, it ached with a dull, steady fire. She tried not to think about it. She had to work. Her mother, back in the village, was depending on her. Her mother's medicine was expensive. Sofia looked out of the small opening of her kiosk. She watched the people of Nairobi hurry by. Everyone was running, shouting, moving. She felt like a small, quiet island in the middle of a noisy river. Suddenly, the door to her kiosk was pushed open so hard it banged against the wall. A man stood there. He was tall. In his face was a mask of anger and panic. He was covered in brown, stinking mud. "Can you fix this?" he demanded. His voice was sharp like a stone. He pointed to his wet, dirty shirt. "I need a clean shirt. I need a suit, now. I have a meeting, the most important meeting of my life." Sofia was scared at first. Men who looked this rich and this angry usually did not stop at places like hers. They went to the big fancy dry cleaners in Westlands. But she saw the desperation in his eyes. It was a look she understood, the look of someone whose world was about to fall apart. She nodded slowly. Her voice was soft. "Yes, sir, I can help." Marcus was surprised. He had expected her to be scared or to say no, but her voice was calm. It was like a cool cloth on his hot, pounding headache. He stepped inside. The kiosk was tiny. Clean clothes hung in plastic bags on one side. A small table with an iron stood on the other. It was a humble place, but it was neat. "I don't have a new suit to give you, sir," Sofia said quietly. "But I have my brother's. He left it here. He is about your size. It is a simple black suit, but it is very clean. And I can wash and press your shirt. It will be quick." Marcus looked at her. He saw the faint scar on her arm, a long, pale line. He saw the tiredness in her eyes, but he also saw a quiet strength. He had been shouting, and she had been calm. He was falling apart, and she was offering a solution. "Okay," he said, his voice softer now. "Okay, please be fast." He took off his ruined jacket and tie. He went into a small corner behind a curtain to change out of his wet shirt. Sofia gave him a clean wrapper to put on while she worked. Her hands moved with a speed and skill that was amazing to watch. She washed his shirt in a basin of soapy water. Her weak arm trembled a little, but she did not stop. She wrung the water out, and then with the hot iron, she began to press it. Steam hissed. The shirt went from a wet rag to a clean, crisp piece of clothing in minutes. She took her brother's suit out of its protective bag. It was simple, as she had said, but it was perfectly clean. When Marcus came out from behind the curtain, the clean shirt and suit were waiting. He put them on. The suit was not as expensive as his own, but it fit. It was clean. It was good enough. He looked in the small, cracked mirror on the wall. He looked like a serious businessman again. He turned to Sofia. He felt a wave of relief so strong it made him dizzy. "Thank you," he said. He truly meant it. "You saved me." Sofia gave a small, shy smile. "It is my work, sir." Marcus pulled out his wallet. It was thick with notes. He pulled out a large amount, much more than the wash was worth, and held it out to her.
She looked at the money, and her eyes went wide, but then she shook her head. "No, sir, that is too much. My price is just 500 shillings. Marcus pushed the money into her hand. "Please take it. You did more than just wash a shirt." Her fingers closed around the notes. She looked down, her cheeks coloring. "Thank you, sir. God bless you."
Marcus nodded. He felt strange. He was a man who commanded boardrooms. He dealt in billions. But in this tiny, hot kiosk, this quiet woman with the aching arm had shown him a kindness he had not seen in a long time. He turned to leave, then paused at the door. "What is your name?" he asked. "Sofia," she said softly. "Sofia," he repeated. The name fit her. "I'm Marcus." He walked out of the kiosk and back into the loud, rushing city. The meeting was waiting, but as he got into his car, he knew he would be back. The meeting was a success. The men from London were impressed by Marcus's sharp mind and his confidence. They signed the papers. His company was safe. His future was bright. As he shook their hands and smiled his business smile, he should have felt on top of the world. But his mind kept drifting back to a small, hot kiosk and a quiet woman with a gentle voice. The next day, Marcus found a reason to go back. He brought 3 of his most expensive suits. "They need cleaning," he told Sofia, even though they were already perfectly clean. Sofia looked at the suits, then at him. A small smile played on her lips. She knew they were clean, but she just nodded. "I will take good care of them, sir." He stayed a while, leaning against the door of the kiosk. He asked her about her day. She told him about the slow business, about the heat, about the price of washing powder going up in the market. He told her about his crazy traffic experience. They talked like old friends. The noise of the street faded into the background. For Marcus, the world became quiet when he was with her. He came back the next day, and the day after that. He brought her lunch, rice and chicken from a nice restaurant. At first, she refused to take it. "Sir, this is too much," she would say, looking down. But he insisted. "A thank you for saving my career," he said with a smile. She would eat the food slowly, carefully, as if it were a precious gift. He learned things about her. He learned that she had come to Nairobi from her village to make money for her mother. He learned that she dreamed of one day opening a proper shop, not just a small kiosk. He learned that she loved the rain, even though it made her arm hurt. She learned things about him, too. She learned that behind the rich man's clothes, he was lonely. He told her about the pressure from his family, the long hours, the feeling that no one saw the real him, only his money. "They see your fine suit," she told him one afternoon, her hands busy folding a clean shirt. "They do not see the man inside, but God sees him." Marcus looked at her in her simple dress with a few beads of sweat on her brow. She was more beautiful than any of the women he knew who wore diamonds and designer dresses. Her kindness was real. It was not a show. One week, Marcus had an important dinner party at his mansion in Karen. He needed his best suit, and he trusted only Sofia to prepare it. "Can you bring it to my house when it's ready? I'll send a driver." Sofia was nervous. She had never been to Karen. She had only seen places like that in movies. She put on her best dress, a simple but clean print fabric. The driver, an older man named Joseph with a kind face, picked her up. They drove through the busy streets of Nairobi, and then suddenly everything changed. The noise faded. The roads were smooth and clean. Huge houses stood behind high gates. Marcus's house was the biggest of them all. It was white and looked like a palace. A security guard opened the heavy iron gate. Joseph drove into a compound so clean you could eat off the ground. There were flowers everywhere. A swimming pool shimmered in the sun. Sofia held the suit, wrapped carefully in plastic, tightly in her hands. She felt small. She felt like she did not belong. Marcus came out to meet her. He was not wearing a suit.
He was in a simple t-shirt and shorts. He was smiling. "Sofia, thank you for coming. Please come inside. Have a drink. It's hot outside." She hesitated. "Sir, I should go. I have work." "Just for a minute," he insisted, his eyes warm. She followed him into the house. It was like stepping into another world. The floor was so shiny she could see her face in it. The air was cold from the air conditioner. A huge staircase curled up to the next floor. Everything was quiet. It was the quietest place she had ever been in Nairobi. He led her to a huge living room. The sofas were white and looked like soft clouds. He brought her a cold bottle of soda. She sat on the very edge of the sofa, afraid to dirty it. They sat in silence for a moment. Then he asked, "What do you think?" "It is a king's house," she whispered, looking around in awe. He laughed, but it was a sad sound. "Sometimes it feels more like a golden cage." That was when she knew for sure that the rich man was not happy. He had everything, and he was trapped. She felt a strange urge to comfort him. She finished her drink quickly. "I must go, sir. Thank you." As he walked her to the door, their hands brushed. A small spark jumped between them. They both felt it. They looked at each other, and in that moment, something shifted. It was not just friendship anymore. It was something deeper, something more dangerous. A few days later, as Sofia was closing her kiosk for the night, her small phone buzzed. It was a call from her village. It was her aunt. Her voice was thin with worry. "It is Sofia. Your mother has collapsed. The fever is very bad. The doctors at the village clinic say they cannot help her. She needs to go to the big hospital in the city." Sofia's blood ran cold. Her tears streamed down her face. She did not know what to do. The big hospital cost a lot of money. Money she did not have. She only had a few thousand shillings saved. It was not enough for the transport, let alone the doctors. She didn't even think. She just dialed Marcus's number. Her fingers were trembling. He answered on the first ring. "Sofia, is everything okay?" He could hear the tears in her voice. "It's my mother," she sobbed, telling him everything. "Stay where you are," he said, his voice firm and commanding. "Don't move. I'm coming." He drove straight to her kiosk, his big car navigating the narrow, crowded streets. He found her sitting on a small stool, her face buried in her hands. He knelt in front of her, right there on the dusty ground. "We will take care of her," he said, his voice gentle. "I will handle everything."
He made calls. He sent money to her aunt in the village to hire a car to bring her mother to a good private hospital in Nairobi. He paid for the best doctors. He paid for all the tests and all the medicine. He told Sofia not to worry about work. He gave her money for food and transport to the hospital. For the next week, Sofia spent her days and nights at the hospital. Her mother was weak, but the doctors were good. They said she would get better. Marcus visited every evening after work. He would bring food for Sofia. He would sit with her for hours in the quiet hospital corridor, just talking. He held her hand when she cried. He made her laugh when she felt hopeless. One night it was late. A heavy rain was falling outside, drumming against the hospital windows. They were sitting in his car in the parking lot. Sofia was exhausted, but she felt a deep sense of peace. Her mother was getting better, and this man, this rich man from another world, was the reason why. "I don't know how I can ever repay you, Marcus," she said, her voice thick with emotion. He turned to her. The car was dark, but she could see the softness in his eyes. "You don't have to repay me, Sofia. I wanted to help." He reached out and gently touched her cheek. "I care about you." She leaned into his touch. Her heart was beating fast. "I care about you a lot." And then he kissed her. It was a gentle kiss at first. Then it became deeper. It was a kiss full of all the things they had not said, all the late-night talks, all the shared meals, all the quiet moments of understanding. In the dark, quiet car with the rain pouring down around them, they held each other. They made love. It was not planned. It was not thought out. It was just two lonely souls finding comfort in each other.
Grace felt a happiness so pure it scared her. Marcus felt a connection he had never felt with anyone before. They both thought this was the beginning of something beautiful, a real love story. But they were wrong. They had no idea that someone was watching, someone who would see their love not as a beautiful thing, but as a problem that had to be removed. Natalie arrived like a storm, a quiet, expensive storm. One afternoon, a black Range Rover with tinted windows pulled up to Marcus's gate. Natalie stepped out. She wore a red dress so bright it almost hurt to look at. Her heels were high and sharp. Her smile was wide, but it did not reach her eyes. Marcus was not home. He was at a meeting. Sofia was in the laundry room washing clothes. Natalie walked into the mansion as if she owned it. She ran a finger over a glass table, checking for dust. She looked at the paintings on the wall with a critical eye. Later that evening, her father came to see her. He was a big man, in a white suit, but he looked worried. His hands were shaking. They sat in the garden by the pool. Sofia was inside, but she could see them through the window. "The men came again," her father whispered. His voice was rough. "They want their money. They said next week or else." Natalie did not look worried. She looked angry. She took a sip of her drink. "I told you I would handle it, Daddy. Marcus is the key. His family has more money than God. Once we're married, your problems will disappear." "But he seems distant," her father said. "He is just a man," Natalie said, her voice like ice. "He will do what his father tells him to do, and his father wants this marriage. Leave Marcus to me." That weekend, Marcus's parents threw a grand dinner party to announce the engagement. The house was filled with important people, men in expensive suits and women in glittering dresses. The air smelled of perfume and money. Marcus stood next to Natalie, a forced smile on his face. He felt like he was in a play. He was acting the part of the happy, successful son. His parents were glowing with pride. "A powerful union of two powerful families," his father said, raising a glass. Everyone cheered. Marcus's eyes searched the room. He saw Sofia for a moment. She was helping one of the maids serve drinks, keeping her head down. Her simple dress looked out of place among all the glitter. Their eyes met for just a second. In that second, he saw her pain, and she saw his. He felt a deep shame. Natalie saw the look. She followed his gaze and saw Sofia. A flicker of something cold and hard passed through her eyes. She put her hand on Marcus's arm, her long nails digging in slightly. "Darling," she said, sweet as honey, "smile. Everyone is watching." Marcus smiled, but it felt like his face was cracking. The golden cage was closing, and the lock was turning, and Sofia, the one person who made him feel free, was now a servant in his own home. The morning after the party, Sofia went to the street where her kiosk used to be. It was gone. Not just closed, but completely gone. The metal container had been torn down. All that was left was a patch of muddy ground. Her iron, her table, her wooden money box, all crushed. She sank to her knees. Her whole world, the small life she had built with her own 2 hands, had been destroyed. Tears rolled down her cheeks. She did not know that Natalie's father had made one phone call to a man at the city council. He had said the kiosk was an illegal structure. Marcus found her there an hour later. She had not moved. He knelt beside her, his heart breaking. "I'm so sorry, Sofia," he whispered. He brought her back to the mansion. "You will stay here," he said firmly. "I will take care of you. You will have a room. You will be safe." He gave her a small, clean room in the staff quarters at the back of the house. It was where the maids and drivers slept. It was better than nothing. Sofia was grateful, but she was not safe. Natalie had also moved into the mansion to plan the wedding. She made Sofia's life a living nightmare. She treated her not like a guest, but like a personal slave. "Laundry girl," Natalie would call out, her voice echoing through the huge house. "Come here." One day, she made Sofia wash a pile of already clean clothes. "They don't smell right," Natalie said, wrinkling her nose. "Wash them again, by hand." Sofia spent hours bent over a bucket, her back aching, her weak arm throbbing. Natalie watched her with a small, cruel smile. Another day, Natalie deliberately dropped her expensive pearl earring on the floor. "Oh dear," she sighed. "Sofia, be a darling and find it for me." She made Sofia crawl on her hands and knees for half an hour searching the floor, while Natalie sat on the sofa filing her nails. The other staff were afraid of Natalie. They saw her cruelty, but they were too scared to speak up. They would give Sofia small kindnesses in secret, a piece of meat from the pot, a kind word, a sad smile. Marcus saw some of it. He would argue with Natalie. "Leave her alone," he would say. "She's our guest." Natalie would just laugh. "Darling, she's a maid. This is what maids do. Are you saying I shouldn't manage the staff in my own home?" Marcus felt helpless. His parents supported Natalie. They thought she was a strong woman who knew how to run a household. They told Marcus he was being too soft. Sofia cried herself to sleep every night in her small room. She missed her kiosk. She missed her freedom. She felt trapped and alone. The big house, once a place of wonder, was now her prison.
It started with a deep, bone-aching tiredness. Sofia would wake up in the morning feeling as if she had not slept at all. The work Natalie gave her was hard, and now it felt impossible. Just sweeping the long driveway made her feel dizzy. Her back ached constantly. Then came the sickness. Every morning, a wave of nausea would wash over her. She would have to run to the small bathroom in the staff quarters, her hand over her mouth. She would kneel on the cold floor, her body shaking. At first, she thought it was stress, or maybe she had eaten something bad. But the feeling did not go away. It came back every morning like an unwelcome visitor. The other maids noticed. "Sofia, are you well?" an older woman named Mama Rose asked, her eyes full of worry. "You are pale." Sofia would force a smile. "I am fine, just tired." But a small, terrifying thought was growing in her mind. A thought she was too scared to even whisper. One afternoon, she felt a strange fluttering in her belly. It was so light, like the butterfly's wings. She put her hand on her stomach. Her heart started to pound. The memory of that rainy night in Marcus's car came rushing back. She knew she had to find out. That evening, after finishing her work, she took a bus to a small chemist shop a few kilometers away, where no one would know her. Her hands were sweating as she asked the woman behind the counter for a pregnancy test. She wrapped it in a black bag and hid it deep in her handbag. Back in her small room, she waited until the house was completely silent. She could hear the faint hum of the generator and the chirping of crickets outside. Her hands were trembling so much she could barely open the box. She followed the instructions, then she had to wait 3 minutes. It felt like 3 years. She sat on the edge of her narrow bed, her eyes fixed on the small plastic stick on the floor. When the 3 minutes were up, she picked it up. Her breath caught in her throat. 2 lines. 2 bright, clear, undeniable pink lines. Pregnant. She sank to the floor. Tears started to fall, but she did not know if they were tears of joy or fear. A baby, a part of Marcus, a small, secret hope growing inside her. She put a hand on her belly. A fierce, protective love washed over her. Her baby! Then the fear came, cold and sharp. Marcus was engaged to Natalie. His parents would never accept her or her child. They would say she was a gold digger. They would say she had trapped their son. And Natalie, what would Natalie do? Sofia shivered. She knew what Natalie would do. She would crush her. She would destroy her and the baby without a second thought. "I cannot tell anyone," Sofia whispered to the empty room. "No one can know." She had to protect her baby. She had to find a way. She was a mother now. Natalie was not stupid. She was a hunter, and she knew when her prey was acting differently. She saw the changes in Sofia. She saw the pale, tired look in her eyes. Most of all, she noticed how Sofia no longer ate with the other staff in the evenings. She would take a small plate of food to her room, claiming she was not hungry.
One morning, Natalie was walking past the staff quarters when she heard the sound of someone being sick. She paused, her head tilted. She listened. It was coming from the bathroom Sofia used. A slow, cruel smile spread across her face. "So," she whispered to herself, "the little mouse has a secret." She decided to wait. She was patient. That afternoon, she knew Sofia would be out on the compound washing Marcus's cars. It was a job Natalie had given her, a job that took hours under the hot sun. As soon as Sofia was gone, Natalie went to her room. It was a small and simple room, a narrow bed, a small wooden wardrobe, a single chair. It was neat and clean. Natalie's lip curled in disgust. She opened the wardrobe. There were only a few simple dresses hanging there. She ran her hands through them. Nothing. She checked under the thin mattress. Nothing. She was about to leave when she saw the small waste bin in the corner, at the very bottom, wrapped in a piece of old newspaper with something small and hard. She tipped the bin over. The little package fell out. With the tip of her long painted nail, she unwrapped it. It was the box from a pregnancy test. It was empty. Natalie's heart began to pound faster. She looked around the room, her eyes darting everywhere. Then she noticed that the bin liner had a small tear. She knelt, her expensive dress pooling on the floor. She carefully lifted the bin, and there it was. The small plastic stick had fallen through the hole. It was lying on the floor, hidden in the shadow. She picked it up. She held it up to the light coming from the small window. 2 lines. 2 bright, clear, undeniable pink lines. Pregnant. She sank to the floor. The tears that had just fallen were now replaced by a fierce, cold anger. The poor laundry girl was carrying Marcus's baby. Her baby. The baby that was supposed to secure her future, pay her father's debts, and make her the queen of this house. "No," she hissed. The word was like a poisoned dart in the quiet room. "No, you will not ruin this for me." Her mind raced. A plan began to form. A dark and terrible plan. She had to get rid of Sofia. But not just get rid of her. She had to make it look like an accident, and she had to get rid of the baby, too. She carefully put the test back where she found it. She left the room as quietly as she had entered. No one would ever know she had been there. As she walked back to the main house, her sharp heels clicking on the stone path, her plan was complete. It was vicious. It was final. And it would happen very, very soon. The next evening, Marcus's parents were coming for dinner. The house was in a flurry of activity. The cooks were busy in the kitchen, preparing a large feast. Natalie was in charge, walking around the kitchen, pointing and giving orders. She had been sweet to Sofia all day. It was a frightening, unnatural sweetness. "Sofia, dear, you look tired," Natalie had said in the morning. "Why don't you take it easy today?" Sofia was suspicious. Natalie was never kind. This sudden change made her feel cold with dread. As the cooks worked, Natalie found a moment when everyone was busy. She had a small, unlabeled bottle in her pocket. It contained a dark, thick liquid she had bought from a man in a back alley at the local market. The man sold traditional herbs. He had promised her this one was special. "It will remove any problem from a woman's body," he had said with a knowing wink. Natalie knew it was a poison meant to cause a miscarriage. She watched Sofia. She knew Sofia often saved a small portion of her own food to eat later in her room after her work was done. Tonight, Sofia had cooked herself a small pot of simple fish stew. It sat on the side of the stove, away from the main dishes. Natalie waited for her chance. She sent the head cook to the storeroom to get more cooking oil. She sent the other maids to set the big dining table. For a few seconds, she was alone in the kitchen. Her movements were quick and silent. She opened the small unlabeled bottle. A bitter, herbal smell filled the air for just a moment. She poured a generous amount of the dark liquid into Sofia's stew. She stirred it quickly with a spoon, then washed the spoon and put it away. She put the bottle back in her pocket. The whole thing took less than 10 seconds. When the head cook returned, Natalie was standing by the oven, checking on the roasted chicken. "Everything is looking wonderful," she said, her voice smooth as silk. Later, during the grand dinner, Sofia helped serve the food. She looked tired. Her belly, though still small, was starting to show a gentle curve under her dress. Marcus, sitting at the table, watched her with worried eyes. He wanted to talk to her, to ask her what was wrong, but he was trapped between his parents and Natalie. After dinner was served, Sofia took her small plate of stew and a piece of bread. She was so hungry. She had not eaten all day. She walked back to her small room in the staff quarters. Natalie watched her go. A cold, triumphant smile touched her lips. She raised her wine glass in a silent toast. The problem, she thought, was about to be cleaned away for good. The first bite of the stew tasted bitter. Sofia frowned. Maybe she had put in too many herbs, but she was too hungry to care. She was also exhausted. The work had been hard, and the growing baby inside her was taking all her strength. She sat on her bed and ate quickly. The pain started a few minutes later. It was a sharp, twisting cramp deep in her belly. It was so sudden and so strong that it made her gasp. She dropped her fork. It clattered on the floor. Another cramp hit her, harder this time. It felt like a hot knife was stabbing her from the inside. She cried out, clutching her stomach. A cold sweat broke out on her forehead. The room started to spin. She knew this was not normal. This was not the usual discomfort of pregnancy. This was poison. The word exploded in her mind. Natalie. The sweet act, the strange smile. It all made sense now. She tried to stand up to call for help, but her legs would not hold her. She fell to the floor, the plate of food crashing beside her. The pain was unbearable. She curled into a ball, moaning. She could feel something terrible happening inside her. "My baby! Oh God, my baby!" She must have blacked out. The next thing she knew, someone was shouting her name. It was Marcus. He had come looking for her after his parents had left. He had a bad feeling. He found her on the floor, barely conscious. He did not ask questions. He scooped her up in his arms. She was so light. He ran with her out of the house, shouting for his driver. The journey to the hospital was a blur of panic and flashing lights. Marcus held Sofia, whispering her name over and over. "Stay with me, Sofia. Please stay with me." They went to the nearest general hospital. It was crowded and chaotic. People were everywhere, sitting on benches, lying on floors. The air was thick with the smell of medicine and sickness. Marcus shouted for a doctor, using his name and his money to get attention. They put Sofia on a trolley and wheeled her into the emergency room. A young doctor, Dr. James, came to see her. He had a kind, tired face. As he was examining Sofia, Natalie arrived. She had followed them. Her face was a perfect mask of concern. "Is she okay?" she asked, rushing to Marcus's side and putting a hand on his arm. While Marcus was distracted, trying to fill out forms, Natalie pulled Dr. James aside. She pushed a thick envelope of cash into his hand. It was more money than the doctor made in a year. "Her name is Sofia," Natalie whispered, her voice low and venomous. "She is a problem. I need you to make sure she has a complication, something she cannot recover from, her and the child inside her. Do you understand? My father has friends on the board of this hospital. Your career will be over if you say no, but if you say yes, there will be much more money." The doctor looked at the money. He looked at Natalie's cold, hard eyes. He thought of his own family, his children's school fees. He gave a small, shaky nod. Later that night, he stood by Sofia's bed. She was sleeping, an IV drip in her arm. She looked so young and so fragile. He held a syringe in his hand. It was filled with a drug that would stop her heart. It would look like a tragic complication of the poisoning. He looked at her peaceful face. He saw the gentle curve of her belly under the thin hospital blanket. He thought of his own daughter, who was just a little girl. He thought of his oath as a doctor to do no harm. He could not do it. He could not be a monster for money. He put the syringe down. He gently shook Sofia's shoulder. "Sofia," he whispered, urgently, "you have to wake up." Her eyes fluttered open. They were filled with confusion and pain. "Listen to me," Dr. James said, his voice low. "Your life is in danger. The woman who brought you here, Natalie, she paid me to kill you tonight." Sofia's eyes widened in horror. "You cannot stay here," he said, pulling the IV from her arm. "You have to run. Leave Nairobi. Go somewhere she can never find you. If you stay, she will try again, and next time she might succeed. Disappear, Sofia, for your life and for your child's life." He pressed a few thousand shillings into her hand, his own money. "It's not much, but it will help you get started." Tears of terror and gratitude streamed down Sofia's face. He helped her out of the bed and led her down a dark, quiet corridor to a back exit used by the staff. "Go now," he whispered, "and don't ever look back." Sofia stumbled out into the dark, hot Nairobi night. She was pregnant, she was alone, and she was running for her life.
The night was a black, suffocating blanket. Sofia ran. She did not know where she was going. She just knew she had to get away from the hospital, away from Natalie, away from Nairobi. The city lights, once a sign of hope, now seemed like 1,000 angry eyes watching her. Her hospital gown was thin, the night air was cool, but she was burning with fear. She clutched the money Dr. James had given her in her fist. Her belly ached with a dull, constant pain from the poison. She kept one hand pressed against it, as if she could protect the tiny life inside through her touch alone. She walked for what felt like hours, staying in the shadows. She reached a major road. Huge trucks roared past, their headlights cutting through the darkness. She was trying to get to a bus stop, somewhere she could get a ride far away, maybe back to her village. But she was so tired her legs felt like lead. She had to rest. She sat down on the dusty roadside, pulling her knees to her chest. Cars and trucks sped by. No one saw the small, frightened woman in the hospital gown, huddled by the side of the road. She felt invisible. She felt hopeless. A car slowed. It was an old, beat-up sedan. It pulled over a few feet in front of her. Sofia's heart leapt into her throat. Was it one of Natalie's men? Had they found her already? A man got out. He was not big or scary. He was tall and thin, and he wore a simple green jacket. He had a calm, kind face. "Are you all right, sister?" he asked. His voice was gentle. "It is not safe for a woman to be out here alone at this time of night, especially in your condition." He glanced at her belly. Sofia could not speak. She just shook her head, tears filling her eyes again. "My name is Peter," he said. "I am driving to my hometown past Nakuru. It is a quiet place. You can rest there. My wife will take care of you. You will be safe." Sofia looked at him. She was so tired of running, so tired of being scared. His face looked honest. His eyes looked kind. She was desperate. She had to trust someone. "Okay," she whispered. He helped her up gently. He opened the door for her. The inside of the car was old, but it was clean. He gave her a bottle of water and a small loaf of bread from the back seat. She ate the bread like a starving animal. It was the first thing she had eaten since the poisoned stew. They drove in silence for a long time. The lights of Nairobi faded behind them. The road became dark and lonely. Sofia's head leaned against the cool glass of the window. The gentle rocking of the car made her feel sleepy. For the first time in hours, she felt a tiny flicker of safety. Maybe God had sent this man to help her. Maybe everything was going to be okay. She closed her eyes and drifted into a restless sleep. Peter's hometown was a small, quiet place. The houses were simple, with neat compounds. Chickens scratched in the dirt paths. It was a world away from the noise and rush of Nairobi. Peter lived in a small, clean home with his wife, a quiet, smiling woman who welcomed Sofia with open arms. They gave Sofia a small room of her own. For weeks, they were nothing but kind. Peter's wife would cook for her, making sure she ate well for the baby. Peter would ask about her day and tell her she was safe.
"No one will find you here," he would say, his voice reassuring. Slowly, Sofia began to relax. The fear in her heart began to shrink. Her belly grew rounder and firmer. She would spend her days sitting under the shade of a tree, sewing small clothes for her baby out of old fabric Peter's wife gave her. She started to believe she had found a real refuge. One night, a terrible storm hit the town. Rain hammered on the tin roof. The wind howled like a hungry animal. The power, which was already unreliable, went out completely, plunging the house into thick, heavy darkness. Sofia was in her room listening to the storm. She was just about to fall asleep when her door creaked open. A dark shape stood in the doorway. It was Peter. "Peter?" she asked, her voice trembling. "What is it? Is something wrong?" He stepped inside and closed the door behind him. The click of the lock was loud in the silence. In the faint light from a lightning flash, she saw his face. The kindness was gone. His eyes were cold and greedy. "I have taken care of you, Sofia," he said, his voice a low growl. "I have fed you. I have sheltered you. I have protected you and your unborn child. Now it is time for you to repay my kindness." Sofia's blood ran cold. She knew instantly what he meant. She sat up, pulling the thin bedsheet to her chin. "What are you talking about? I have no money to give you." He laughed, a short, ugly sound. "I don't want your money." He took a step closer. "You are a woman. You know what a man needs." "No," she whispered, shaking her head. "Please, no. I am pregnant. I'm carrying a child." "I don't care," he said, lunging toward the bed. Terror gripped her, but then something else rose up inside her. It was a fierce, hot anger, the anger of a mother protecting her child. She was not just a scared, helpless girl anymore. She was a lioness. Her eyes darted around the dark room. On the small table next to her was a metal kettle. She had boiled water earlier for tea. It was still hot. As Peter reached for her, she snatched the kettle. With a scream that came from the bottom of her soul, she threw the boiling water at his face. He howled in agony, clutching his face. He stumbled back, blinded by pain. Sofia did not wait. She leapt from the bed, ran to the door, fumbled with the lock, and pulled it open. She ran out of the room, out of the house, and into the raging storm. The cold rain lashed down on her, soaking her in seconds. The mud sucked at her bare feet, but she did not stop. She ran, her heart breaking all over again. The kindness had been a lie. The safety had been a trap. She was alone again.
For days, Sofia walked. She had no destination. She just put one foot in front of the other. The storm had passed, but the world felt gray and cold. She slept in abandoned market stalls and under bridges. She was hungry all the time. Her growing baby felt heavy in her belly, a constant reminder of who she was fighting for. Her clothes were torn and dirty. People on the street looked away from her, avoiding her eyes. One afternoon, in a small town she did not know the name of, the hunger and exhaustion became too much. The world started to spin. Black spots danced in front of her eyes. She stumbled and fell in the middle of a busy market. She woke up on a soft mat. A kind-looking woman was wiping her forehead with a damp cloth. The woman's eyes were wet with tears. "Oh, you poor child," she was saying. "You poor, poor child." A man stood beside her, his face full of concern. "My name is Mr. Kamal, and this is my wife. We saw you fall. You must come home with us. You are not well." Sofia was too weak to argue. They helped her up and led her to a small but very neat and clean house. Mrs. Kamal gave her a warm bath and a clean dress. She made her a hot, sweet cup of tea and a big plate of warm food. Sofia ate until she was full, for the first time in what felt like forever. They told her their story. They had been married for 10 years, they said, but they had not been blessed with a child. They had prayed and prayed. Seeing Sofia, pregnant and alone, felt like an answer to their prayers. "You will stay with us," Mrs. Kamal said, her hand on Sofia's shoulder.
You will be our daughter. We will take care of you until the baby comes. You will be safe here." Sofia cried with relief. She believed them. Their kindness felt real. Their home felt safe. For a few weeks, it was. One night, she awoke feeling thirsty. The house was dark and silent. She tiptoed out of her room to get a glass of water from the kitchen. As she passed the living room, she heard whispering. It was Mr. and Mrs. Kamal. She paused, not wanting to disturb them. "This is our chance," Mrs. Kamal was whispering, her voice sharp and urgent. "God has sent us a child, our own child." Sofia's chest tightened. Mr. Kamal's voice was full of doubt. "But, my dear, it is her child. We cannot just take it." "We will," his wife insisted, her voice dropping to a cold, hard whisper. "When her time comes, we will help her deliver. Then we will tell her the baby was born sleeping, that it did not survive. She is a weak, homeless girl. What will she do? We will give her some money and send her away, and we will have our baby. No one will ever know." Sofia felt the floor drop out of under her. The kind faces, the warm food, the gentle words. It was all a lie, another trap. Her heart, which had started to heal, shattered into a million pieces. They did not want to help her. They wanted to steal her child. She backed away from the door, her hand over her mouth to stop a sob from escaping. She crept back to her room, her body shaking with a cold, deep terror she had never felt before. She did not sleep. She waited, watching the sky outside her window turn from black to gray. As soon as she saw the first light of dawn, she took her small bag with her few belongings. She did not make a sound. She slipped out of the house like a ghost and ran. She would rather face the lonely road again. She would rather starve. She would not let them touch her baby. Sofia walked until her feet were raw. She was no longer running from anything. She was just moving, a ghost on the side of a dusty road. Hope was a luxury she could no longer afford. Trust was a poison. All she had left was the fierce animal instinct to protect the life inside her. The road eventually began to look familiar. The shape of the trees, the color of the earth. She was, without planning it, near her own village. She was so tired she could barely stand. She saw an old, gnarled tree by the roadside and sank down at its base, her body giving up. She closed her eyes. A weak voice coughed nearby. "A little something for an old woman?" Sofia opened her eyes. A few feet away sat a figure huddled in rags. The woman was thin, her skin like wrinkled paper. Her eyes were dull with sickness. A small begging bowl was in her lap. Her first thought was, "I have nothing." She had nothing for herself, let alone anyone else. She started to turn away, but something in the woman's posture, the way she held her head, was familiar. Sofia's heart gave a painful lurch. She crawled closer. "Mama," she whispered, her voice a dry crackle.
The old woman lifted her head slowly. Her eyes, clouded with sickness, widened. For a moment, she did not recognize the ragged, pregnant girl in front of her. Then a flicker of light. "Sofia," the woman breathed. It was her mother. Sofia let out a cry that was not human. It was the sound of a heart breaking completely. She threw her arms around her mother's thin, frail body. "Mama, what happened to you? Marcus, he promised he would take care of you." Her mother coughed, a weak, rattling sound. She clung to Sofia. "The rich man's woman," she whispered, her voice weak. "The one named Natalie. She brought food and medicine for 1 month. Then she stopped coming. She left me here to die on the road." All the fear in Sofia's body turned to fire. A white-hot rage burned away her tears, her hunger, her exhaustion. Natalie had not just tried to kill her and her baby, she had tried to kill her mother too. She had left her to starve.
This was not just about survival anymore. This was about justice. With a strength she did not know she had, Sofia helped her mother to her feet. She half-carried her the rest of the way to their old family home. It was small and crumbling, but it was home. Inside, Sofia laid her mother on a mat. She started a fire. She begged for some food from a neighbor and made a thin, warm soup. Day after day, she cared for her mother. The girl who had been running and hiding was gone. A woman, a warrior, had taken her place. She started a small business. She borrowed a small charcoal pot and began roasting food by the roadside. Her swollen belly made it hard to stand for long hours in the sun. Her back ached, her feet swelled, but she did not stop. Every shilling she made went to buy food and medicine for her mother. Her mother slowly started to get stronger. The light came back into her eyes. One evening, as they sat outside their home watching the sunset paint the sky orange and purple, her mother took her hand. "You have fire in you, my daughter," she said, her voice stronger now. "Do not let them put it out." Sofia finally told her everything, about Marcus, about the baby, about the poison and the escape. Her mother listened, her face grim. When Sofia was finished, she did not say, "You must hide." She did not say, "Be careful." She said, "You must go back." Sofia looked at her, shocked. "Go back, Mama? She will kill me." "A snake only understands the foot that crushes it," her mother said, her eyes fierce. "You must go back and crush her. Not for Marcus, for your child, for me, for yourself. The truth is your only weapon. You must go and speak it so loudly that the whole world can hear." She reached inside her dress and pulled out a thin gold chain. It was her wedding necklace, the only valuable thing she owned. "Sell this," she said, pressing it into Sofia's hand. "It will be enough to get you to Nairobi. Do not fail. Go and claim what is yours." Sofia looked at the necklace in her palm. She looked at her mother's strong, determined face. The fear was still there, a cold knot in her stomach, but something else was stronger now. Courage. She would go back. She would face the snake. The bus to Nairobi was hot and crowded. It smelled of sweat and petrol. Sofia sat squeezed by a window, one hand resting protectively on her big round belly. The gold necklace had given her enough money for the ticket and a little extra. In her small bag she had a clean dress and a bottle of water. It was all she had in the world. The people on the bus were talking and laughing. They were all talking about one thing. "Have you heard?" a woman with a bright yellow headscarf said to her friend. "The great billionaire Marcus is getting married today in Nairobi. They say it is the wedding of the year." Her friend clapped her hands. "Nothing like it has ever been seen before." Sofia's heart dropped like a stone. Today, the wedding was today. She thought she would have more time. A wave of dizziness washed over her. She gripped the side of the seat. She had to get there. She had to stop it. The journey took hours. The bus stopped and started. The traffic on the edge of the city was terrible. Sofia felt every minute, every second ticking away. Meanwhile, in his mansion in Karen, Marcus was getting dressed. His room was filled with his groomsmen, all laughing and joking. They were helping him into his white ceremonial suit, richly embroidered. He looked like a king, but he felt like a prisoner on his way to his execution. He looked at himself in the mirror. A stranger looked back. "Marcus, my brother, you look troubled," his best friend Tobias said, clapping him on the shoulder. "This is your wedding day. You're supposed to be happy." Marcus's voice was low and heavy. "Tobias, I don't think I can do this." Tobias stopped smiling. "What are you talking about?" "Natalie, she doesn't have my heart. I cannot love her. I cannot pretend for the rest of my life." He looked out the window, his thoughts on Sofia. He believed she was dead. He had mourned her for months, but her memory was more alive to him than the woman he was about to marry. "Tobias," he said, his hands clenched into fists, "I want the real thing. I want truth." Downstairs, Natalie was floating through the grand living room like a queen. Her wedding dress was covered in thousands of tiny crystals. It glittered under the chandeliers. Her face was bright with triumph. Guests bowed to her. Photographers' cameras flashed. Her father stood beside her, his face beaming. Their money problems were finally over. None of them knew that a storm was coming, a storm named Sofia. By the time Sofia's bus finally arrived at the park in Nairobi, the sun was already high in the sky. She took a motorcycle taxi, weaving recklessly through the traffic. She gave the driver the address of the event center. She arrived to an incredible glamour. The street was lined with expensive cars. Women in fabulous dresses and men in sharp suits were walking into a huge white building decorated with thousands of flowers. The sound of music and laughter spilled out. Sofia paid the driver and stood across the street, her heart pounding. She looked at her simple dress, her dusty feet in their worn slippers. She looked at her big, round belly. How could she walk in there? They would throw her out. She remembered her mother's words. She took a deep breath. She was not a laundry girl anymore. She was a mother, fighting for her child. She walked across the street, her head held high. She walked past the security guards who were too busy admiring the important guests to notice her. She walked through the big glass doors and into the hall, and she kept walking right down the long, flower-lined aisle toward the man she loved. The music stopped. A high, sweet violin note hung in the air and then died. Hundreds of heads turned. A collective gasp went through the hall like a wave. At the front of the aisle, standing at the altar, Marcus looked up. He saw a woman in a simple dress, her belly round with child, walking toward him. Her face was thin and tired, but he knew that face. He knew those eyes. "Sofia," he whispered. His knees felt weak. He thought he was seeing a ghost. Natalie, who had been smiling radiantly at her guests, spun around. Her smile froze and then shattered. Her face for a second was a mask of pure shock and horror. Then it twisted into a look of unbelievable fury. "What is this?" she shrieked, her voice ugly and loud. "Who let this beggar in here? Security, get her out of my wedding. Get her out now." But before any guard could move, Natalie lunged forward. She grabbed Sofia's arm. Then she raised her leg and kicked Sofia hard in the stomach, right in front of everyone. The room erupted in horrified screams. Sofia stumbled but did not fall. She stood tall, one hand pressed to her belly, her eyes full of pain but not defeat. She kept her eyes fixed on Marcus. "David," she said, her voice shaking but clear enough for everyone in the silent hall to hear, "I am alive." "You are supposed to be dead," Natalie hissed, her voice a low, poisonous whisper. "I will deal with you myself." "No," Sofia said, pulling her arm away. Her voice grew stronger, louder. "Your games are over, Natalie. Today everyone will know the truth. This baby is Marcus's child." A roar went through the crowd. Marcus's mother gasped. His father stared with his mouth open. Marcus took a step forward, his eyes locked on Sofia's belly. His child. "She's lying!" Natalie screamed, her face red with rage. "She is a crazy, lying gold digger. I have never seen her before in my life. She is trying to ruin my wedding." She turned to the security guards. "I said get her out!" But before the guards could move, a man stood up from the back of the hall. It was Dr. James. He was wearing a simple suit and held a small digital recorder in his hand. "She is not lying," he said, his voice ringing with authority. The crowd went silent, turning to look at him. "My name is Dr. James. I was the doctor who treated Sofia at the General Hospital when she was poisoned." He looked directly at Natalie. "And I am the doctor you bribed to kill her." Natalie's face went white as chalk. Dr. James pressed a button on the recorder. Natalie's voice, cold and cruel, filled the magnificent hall. Her own words, her own ugly plan echoed off the crystal chandeliers for everyone to hear. When it was over, there was a dead, horrified silence. The truth was out. There was nowhere left for Natalie to hide. The silence was broken by the sound of sirens. 2 police officers walked into the hall. Dr. James had called them before he came. They walked straight to Natalie. She did not scream or fight. She just stood there, her beautiful, glittering dress a mockery. Her face was empty. She had lost. Her father, looking suddenly old and defeated, was also led away. The guests, whispering and pointing, began to leave in a hurry. The wedding of the year had become the scandal of the decade. But as the police led Natalie toward the door, she stopped. She turned back to look at the hall one last time. And in that moment, in front of the entire remaining crowd, she fell to her knees and began to weep. The kick she had delivered to a pregnant woman had destroyed everything she had worked for in mere minutes. She had thought Sofia was nothing. She had thought cruelty was power. Now she knew better. Regret, cold and absolute, washed over her. Marcus did not even look at them. He only had eyes for Sofia. He walked toward her slowly, as if in a dream. He stopped in front of her. His eyes were wet with tears. "Sofia," he whispered, his voice full of pain. "I thought you were dead. I mourned you every day. She told everyone I was dead. She told everyone." He reached out a trembling hand and gently, so gently, touched her belly. At that moment he felt a small kick from inside, a tiny flutter of life. His baby, his and Sofia's baby. He sank to his knees, right there on the flower-strewn aisle. He wrapped his arms around her and buried his face against her, his body shaking with sobs. "Forgive me," he cried. "Forgive me for not protecting you. Forgive me for not seeing the truth." Sofia put her hands on his head, her fingers stroking his hair. The anger, the pain, the fear, it all melted away, replaced by a deep, quiet love. "There is nothing to forgive," she said. They left the ruined wedding together, hand in hand. They did not look back. The air in the village was sweet with the smell of wood smoke and roasting corn. Laughter and the sound of drumming filled the air. In front of a newly built, comfortable home, much bigger than the old family hut, the entire village had gathered. They were celebrating the naming ceremony of a new baby. Sofia stood in the center of the crowd, glowing with happiness. She held her son, a beautiful, healthy boy baby. Her mother, her face now full and healthy, stood beside her, beaming with pride. Marcus was there too. He wasn't wearing an expensive suit. He wore a simple, traditional outfit. He had a smile on his face that was real and true. He looked at Sofia and his son with a love so deep it seemed to light up the whole village. He had stepped away from the pressure of his old world. He had used his resources to build this new home for Sofia's mother and to start a small foundation to help poor women and children in the village. His old life of billions and boardrooms had changed, but he had never been richer. He took the baby from Sofia's arms. He held him up for everyone to see. "His name is Hope," he announced, his voice strong and clear. The villagers cheered. The drums beat louder. Sofia leaned her head on Marcus's shoulder, her heart full. The road had been long and full of thorns, but it had led her here. It had led her home. She was no longer a servant, a victim, or a girl running in the dark. She was Sofia. She was a mother. She was loved, and she was finally, truly happy.